Get out! Fucking sniper. Did you see where it came from? Somewhere down the street.
Is The Last of Us Part 1 really a remake, or is it just a glorified remaster? The idea that it's the latter is something that has taken hold across social media, engagement on most platforms being driven by outrage and controversy first and foremost. In this video, let's look at why the idea of the game as a remaster in disguise isn't just wrong, but obviously so. This ought to settle the argument once and for all, because we're better than in a YouTube video to get people to rethink their position and listen to reason. Before we get into that, a disclaimer. Whether the game is worth the £70 price tag and whether the game is actually a remake are two separate questions. Accepting that the game is a remake doesn't mean that it'll necessarily be worth £70 to you, and that's fine. Monetary worth is subjective, defined by a whole bunch of factors, and means something different to a corporation seeking to make profit than to an individual wondering if they can afford a particular product. I pre-ordered the game online for £53 at an outlet known for offering games cheaper, though since then the price at the same store has jumped by £10. Others have spent double that to get the limited Firefly edition, because they don't just want to play the game but they're a collector and they want the steelbook and the comics. Others still will wait till the game is discounted, because they want to play it but can't pay full price. And of course others simply won't buy it. All of those choices are valid, and opinions on all of that are wholly subjective. That's why, as we dive into why The Last of Us Part 1 is a remake and not a remaster, I'm making no comment on the price. Whether it's worth its current price, or what price it should be, is for you to decide as a consumer, or to spend endless hours fighting about on Twitter and Reddit. You do you. Returning to the point of this video, what's the difference between a remake and a remaster? The answer is simple enough. To remaster something is to take an existing product and tweak it to improve the quality. To remake something is to create a fresh product that replicates an existing one or as a new, separate entity. It's the difference between, say, editing a painting in Photoshop and doing a new painting of the same scene using the old one as a reference. The 2014 remaster of The Last of Us entered development immediately after the original game was finished. They took the game they'd just made and increased the graphical fidelity by upscaling the resolution to 1080p, increasing the draw distance, the maximum distance at which objects are rendered, and improving the character model resolution, lighting and shadows. They also updated the controls to take account of the touchpad on the PlayStation 4, and had audio files play through the PS4 controller speaker, as well as including the Left Behind DLC as part of the final product. The remaster, released a year and a month after the original, had a lot of work done to it, but all of that was done to an existing game product, which had taken 4 years to create. 8 years on, The Last of Us Part 1 isn't that product from 2013 or 14 with a bunch of fine-tuning on top. Not least because it's been built in a different game engine. Naughty Dog built a new proprietary game engine for The Last of Us Part 2, which was capable of so much more than the engine in which its predecessor was developed, and it's this engine which Part 1 uses. Just one example is the accessibility features, which iterate even further on those available in Part 2. The idea that these can simply be retrofitted onto a game and an engine that wasn't designed with them in mind is nonsense, at least without a longer and more intensive effort than making the game from scratch. In doing so, yes, Naughty Dog will be using things that it has available to it. This includes assets from Part 2 that can be polished up for the new console generation and reused, as much as it includes technologies like motion matching and a more refined control scheme. But that doesn't mean it's not a remake, it's simply why game engines exist, as a foundation and a toolbox. Why not use those tools if they're there? Why reinvent the wheel if the only benefits are more work and avoiding some random person on the internet accusing you of copy-pasting the wheel? In answer to this, some people will point out that the level layouts are the same, that the original voice and motion capture performances are being used, the controls are the same, and that the gameplay from Part 2 isn't present in Part 1. The level layout being the same isn't anything new for remakes. The levels in the remakes of Demon's Souls, Resident Evil, Metal Gear Solid and more are either wholly or mostly the same as the originals. It simply means that when rebuilding the levels in the new engine, they didn't redesign the maps beforehand, which there's no reason to do if the existing maps work well to encourage gameplay that feeds into the systems and mechanics of the game. Those identical levels were still built from scratch, including using the new engine and the new console's physics capabilities, so that so much more of the level is destructible. Even if the idea of copying and pasting the original game's levels into a new engine wasn't a misunderstanding of how those engines work, then the ease of this would be undone by then having to delete half of those static unbreakable assets, replace with combustible ones, and somehow upscale 720p PS3 assets to 4K PS5 fidelity. The identical controls were also identical in Part 2, beyond the addition of a dodge and prone mechanic, but so much improved in how they handled that they felt fresh. It's that faster, smoother, and more intuitive iteration which made all the difference. As such, the idea that the gameplay isn't vastly improved simply because Joel cannot dodge or go prone doesn't make much sense. The gameplay of Part 2 was never wholly dependent on those two control functions. Motion matching to make combat animations more fluid and the experience feel more real will be a huge part of that improved experience too. The use of the original motion and voice performances makes perfect sense given their quality. The work for the animators is mapping and animating those performances onto new character models which are far higher quality, especially in-game, and more expressive and better looking. Beyond all of that, remaking the game from the ground up also allowed the developers to build features like adaptive triggers and haptic feedback into the game from the beginning. Like the accessibility, this is not something that could simply be slapped onto the back of a 9-year-old game built in an obsolete engine. It's far easier to generate engagement by manufacturing outrage or controversy than by engaging with something in good faith. That's why, even if Naughty Dog were to release a full documentary of the process of making this game, with an idiot's guide to game development and game engines, the loudly angry online simply wouldn't believe them. They're either too eager to jump to conclusions, or have already made up their mind and will angrily shout down anything that doesn't fit their narrative. For me, as a fan of The Last of Us, I want this remake to be something great. The proof of that will be in the pudding. I won't know until I get a controller in my hands and play the thing. But I've seen nothing that gives me cause to worry it won't be, and the manufactured controversy around whether this is a remake, not least from content creators who've been around the games industry long enough that they should know better, is just tiresome. Let me know what you think about what we've seen of the game so far. Are you excited for the game, or are you happy to leave it on the shelf for now? If you're picking it up, what are you most interested in seeing remade from the ground up? Leave a comment below. If you enjoyed this video, then give it a like and consider subscribing to keep up to date with all my content, like the video that just popped up, which YouTube thinks you should watch next. Check out the link in the description to my Patreon to support the channel directly and get perks like shoutouts and early access to videos. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.